Welcome to the Spiritual Cartel's principal meeting. Tonight we're looking at the principle of integrity. This week I am pleased to introduce Edwina, who has kindly agreed to come and share for us. Okay, Edwina, I'll hand the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Ben. Hi everybody, my name is Edwina and I'm an addict, and it's lovely to be here. Purdy makes sure he books you well in advance and then sends you like little reminders every other week just in case. He's not going to let you forget anyway. But no, I am grateful to be here, even though I'm always incredibly nervous when I have to come on and share and be vulnerable. But I guess one thing I've got from Cocaine Anonymous and from the program and from God is I have the courage, no matter what, to turn up, and it's such a beautiful gift to be given. Oh my God, it's one of the nicest gifts I have been given in recovery, is that no matter what is going on, I don't need alcohol or drugs to give me that full sense of courage anymore. I have the courage to turn up no matter what. And it's lovely to be on. It's always nice to come on and share around a topic or a step or a principle or something else other than myself, But I am aware that there's a lot of new people on the meeting too. So, I'd like to be able to carry some sort of a message in that talk around a principle, and just to welcome anybody that's new on. And the Ark House there, they're obviously in some sort of treatment centre facility, and it's great that we have all these platforms that people can come on the Zoom. So very welcome to the lads there that I can see, and anybody else that's new on. I just spotted one of my old school friends who who just introduced himself, and I've not seen him in probably over 30 years. So welcome, Stephen. This is Sandy, by the way. And we meet. This is a place we meet where we can all come back together and live a completely different life. So it's great to see, and welcome to anybody else. But tonight's principle is on integrity. And instead of going into anything, I just pulled out the 12-step companion guide. I actually love this. It's a gorgeous little read for anybody to go alongside our big book. But anyway, I'll read the principle out from that and we'll take it from there and see what God has in store for tonight's meeting. So integrity. Integrity results from using the principles of CA to guide our motives, intentions and actions. We strive to have our actions mirror our intentions. Working the steps of Cocaine Anonymous helps us to build character. We demonstrate integrity when we are authentic, truthful and real. Now, I would not have understood what that meant before I came into Cocaine Anonymous, so I just want to make that clear to anyone that's new around here. I did not know what I meant to have integrity. I probably didn't even know what I meant to have a few years into recovery either. But my sobriety date is April 28, 2014, which means, please God, in less than 3 weeks, I'm going to celebrate 12 years continuous sobriety. And that makes me incredibly emotional. I know there's a lot more humble people out there than me that just say it's one day at a time, but I swear I am so, so grateful to Cocaine Anonymous, to God and to the people who've gone before me to be coming up to 12 years of clean time. I never knew another life like that existed. So if you're new in here and can't even get 12 days or 12 hours, believe me, from a hopeless drug addict, alcoholic woman to have been brought in to now understand what it means to live by integrity most of the time is an absolute miracle. But this is the place where miracles happens, and I'll just touch a little bit on what it was like before I came in and how I had to integrate the principles of the program through strict kind of discipline, because that's what it says. We addicts are very fucking undisciplined. I was extremely undisciplined woman. But by the time I had reached my first Cocaine Anonymous meeting almost 12 years ago now, in a treatment centre, like the lads there in the Ark House, but it was in an in-person meeting. They came in from Cocaine Anonymous. By the time I had reached that very first CA meeting that I went to, I had been years trying to get clean before that. And I was absolutely broken I was so broken. And it explains it in the big book that I knew I was a desperate dying woman before I read any of that literature. I knew I was desperate and I knew I was going to die and I knew I couldn't live the way I had been living. So it was easy discipline me. You know, it was easy for me to do the stuff I was supposed to do in early recovery, but I didn't know what it meant to live honestly. I was a woman who was reared in a family full of alcoholics and addicts. Both my parents were alcoholic. I grew up in a very dishonest home, and it's not to blame. It's just, it was where I had came from. I didn't know any different. So we were taught at a very young age to steal, to tell lies, and to kind of get what you wanted in life, you know what I mean, dishonestly. And that's just the way it was. And then put active addiction on top of that. And you have a formula for, you know, what I ended up becoming. And for me, like, I picked up alcohol and drugs at a really young age, like incredibly young. And by the time I was like, 15, 16, I had gone up all the stuff. The ecstasy was my thing for a while. I loved ecstasy. I had tried everything and I loved everything I tried. People, say they have a drug of choice, and I've come to realise that I did like a certain drug, but really I would take anything. Even as I hate smoking weed and hash and all that, I didn't like it, but if there was nothing else, I would do it anyway, just because it was there, like, you know what I mean? And I just didn't want to be feeling the way I was feeling. And, alcohol and drugs had me in trouble from a very young age. Like, at 18 or 19, like it was drugs or die, drugs or die, drugs or die. That was my response to everything, And I was in and out different kind of treatment centres and detox centres and all that kind of stuff. And I could never get clean. I could get clean off a substance, but I never knew what it was that I suffered with. So I could get clean off a certain drug for a while, but I would always have alcohol in the background. I know now I'm an alcoholic, but it took me a long time to understand that. It took me a long time because I didn't know what it was that I suffered with. I did not know what it was I suffered. I thought it was because I came from the family I came from. I had so much shame around where I came from. My dad had committed suicide when I was a teenager, and I really took that on board. Like, I really felt like, it was all about, it was my fault. And the way we do, and I was using drugs well before he committed suicide, by the way, as well, so I couldn't blame that one, but it fuels it, doesn't it? Life circumstances, they kind of fuel it. But I suppose, to tie it in with tonight's theme, I was the woman who could put a mask on for any occasion. I could be down there in the lowest of the low and I would blend in perfectly fine. And I could be up there with the highest of the high, and I would fit in there perfectly fine. I knew what drugs I could use to fit in with different crowds. I knew what I had to say to fit in with different crowds, and I was never nothing authentic about myself. Now, I've come to realise in Cocaine Anonymous that I am a really good woman and a really good person, but I didn't know how to be that person. So, I lied and cheated and stole and done all of those things and always wanted what I wanted. I thought if I got married and done the right thing and had a family, that would stop me from using. And I tried all of those things. I've tried the marriage. I've tried the having the children. I adore my children. I absolutely adore my children. But getting pregnant and having a family wasn't enough to make me stay clean and sober. I would promise these things. I look like a woman who had a lot of integrity. I would say, oh yeah, I promise you, I mean it, I'm going to do it. That's it. I'm done. But this minute they would turn their back, I would be pulling a fast one. I'd be lying, I'd be cheating, I'd be stealing. I'd be doing what I could to get drugs inside myself, you know what I mean? And that's just the way active addiction is. It didn't mean, I was somebody who done a lot of bad stuff. But I've come to see in recovery that I was actually underneath it all just driven by so much fear and so much obsession to use and so much by my addiction that I would have sold me kids the things I loved most in the world to use. I walked away from a 12-year marriage because I couldn't stop using. So stuff doesn't get me clean and sober. The threat of losing stuff doesn't get me clean and sober. None of that gets me clean and sober, until that day when I became, you know, they say like you have a 4-step experience while you're out there using. A lot of people have that. I've heard it like in a lot of people, and that's what happened to me. You know, I was in this bedroom, lying in bed, dying sick, didn't want to use, wanted to use, didn't want to use, wanted to use. And I had 2 little girls pottering around outside. Mammy, are you getting up? And I'm like, no, like I'm not able, physically sick, not being able to get out of bed. And suddenly the thought comes to use, and all of a sudden I get power. All of a sudden I've power to go and score drugs. Just knowing that I'm going to get them gives me power. And I always share that for anyone that's new, that's coming in here, that my mind is powered, and I suffer with a mind powered illness, that even knowing I can get drugs makes me feel a little bit better already. You know, so that day that I used, that was February 12 years ago. And I used that day, and I always say, like, it's the way, I can never describe anything in words, by the way. I don't know why people ask me to come on and share me at meetings. I'm always flabbergasted by it, because I intellectually can't say what it is that I feel though so deep down inside, but I can try my best to put it into words for people to identify with me. And when I sat in the car that day after screaming me fucking head off at me children, I remember thinking, you useless piece of shit, you'd be better off dead. And in that brokenness, while crying into a bag, what came to me was, you're the problem, Edwina. Stop fighting and blaming the world. You are the problem, and you're the one that's going to have to change. And it's the most profound thing that has happened to me. I always say that it's the most profound thing to this day that's happened, and it continues to be shown myself from a tiny different perspective. Because as we hear in the rooms all the time, self cannot reveal itself to self. So it's either going to be God intervention, or a person like a good sponsor or good people that we meet in these rooms to show us a different way. And that's what happened. I went to treatment, please God, for the last time. It was my second time in a residential treatment. I'd been to a couple of different detoxes. While in that treatment, Cocaine Anonymous came in. I didn't want to go to the CA meeting. I always share about it, but God knew what I needed. And through a good man, I was forced to go to the Cocaine Anonymous meeting. And when I went to that meeting, my heart heard the message. I absolutely heard there's another way to live. You don't have to live this way. The woman read from the AA Big Book. She spoke about that you're going to continue to be restless, bored, irritable, pissed off, and discontent, ungrateful. You're going to continue to be all of those things, which I was, unless you can have an entire psychic change. I asked that lady, when I leave here, will you help me? She said yes. They are big things to ask somebody when you come from such a broken place like a newcomer does. To ask somebody for help, for somebody like me who is riddled with shame. People could be laughing in the meeting and I want to punch their head in, because I'm convinced they're laughing at me because I'm so self-centered and everything's about me. But then all that kind of shield on me. So to ask somebody to help, 12 years into recovery, like I probably forget to mention it these last few years, but reflecting upon it, it's a huge thing to do. You know, so if you're new in here, we get that. We know when you're going to ask us for help. We're not going, this is what we do here. This is what people have done for me. And that woman helped me, and lots of people have continued to help me over the years since. And what has happened is the principles of this program have been fed to me by Cocaine Anonymous members. I did not come in here being fully honest, being full of hope, being full of faith, being full of courage, being full of integrity, and all the other principles that come with this program. I did not. I would like to be able to come on and say that that was the case, but it wasn't. I was still being dishonest in relationships in early recovery. I was still had a sense of entitlement that I didn't have to pay for certain things for the first few years in recovery. I was humiliated many, many times into being humble. And I remember my sponsor used to say to me, Edwina, you're ripping yourself off. You're going to be humiliated into being humble. I always remember. And it was pride a lot of the time that disciplined me into the program. You know what I mean? Because integrity didn't mean anything to me. If I could get away with it, nobody knew about it. Until my relationship with God start developing, until I start really having that kind of love affair and that real experience in my heart that God is actually real and God is actually really walking this path with me. I used to say, I used to feel grateful, but I didn't really know it. You know what I mean? And by living the principles of the program and having strict disciplines over all of these years, eventually that stuff was fed to me. You know what I mean? Yes, I got honest in regards of like honest around me using, as honest as I could be. When I was like every principle is behind a step, like the integrity is with the fifth step. And I remember going doing my first fifth step, and my sponsor saying to me, did you say everything that you had to say? Like, and of course I kept one thing off the sex inventory, because like that's where all the shame is, you know what I mean? And I'm like to myself, like, don't tell her, like, Scarlett, like, don't tell her. Like, it was so fucking stupid. Now I'd be kind of proud to tell everybody about it, you know what I mean? It was like, woo, look at me. But back then, because I was so full of fucking shame, like, and I like got to her front door, like, and she was dying to get rid of me because I had been there for hours, like, and I could kind of feel her pushing me out the door, you know what I mean? And I said to her, oh my God, there's one more thing. Like, I just like had to tell her, you know what I mean? And she said, what is it like? And I was like, well, it's around your man and this and that and whatever. And, she was like, grand. So that's grand. Grand, just fine now. It's gone. Like, and I left like going, oh my God, like, you know what I mean? Like, I had it so built up and worked up in my head, like that there was no way I was going to tell anybody this one thing, like, you know what I mean? But, and that's the principle behind that, was like, just start to be your real self, start to get honest with one other person, you know what I mean? I didn't have to get honest with the world. I didn't have to come home and share it in me home group when I done a share, like, you know what I mean? But eventually, by working through these things, I've shared these things with many, many people, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't care of sharing it with anybody now, because there's no longer that deep rooted shame attached to my behaviours. I'm not me illness. There's more to Edwina than being an addict and an alcoholic and full of shame, you know? And, you know, like these past few years, like I always say, turning year 10 in recovery had been one of the most difficult years for me, just emotionally, with a lot of stuff going through. Like in my first few months in recovery, I was faced with a divorce and, you know, loads of other little things, and I got through them with sticking with the program and doing the things I was supposed to be doing, and, you know, turning up in court and having a story in my head where I wanted to lie to get the outcome that I wanted in the court case with my ex-husband. You know, it was probably a year or so. I'm sure if you listen back to any of my tapes, it's a different time every time I do a share, 6 months or a year or 18 months. It was around that time, like, but I wanted a certain outcome, and I was prepared to tell lies to get that outcome. You know what I mean? Because in my head, it wasn't a lie. It was just a little exaggeration, you know, because the story sounded better exaggerated. And when I went to court that day, you know, I've shared this story many times. Somebody told me on the way into court, another member, because that's how God speaks to me, always through members. You know, when you're going into that court, Edwina, put your hand out and ask God to go with you. And I did that day. And when I got into court, the story that I had prepared to tell the judge to get what I wanted in the divorce, and make sure the kids were full time with me, and make sure I didn't have to move, and make sure I got what I wanted, regardless of what was best for me children or for my ex-husband, who was a really good man, by the way, who just happened to marry somebody who was a full out junkie. You know what I mean? And but in my head, he was wrong. And for many years he was wrong. I mean, we don't tell the truth from the false straight away when we come in here. It takes a lot of inventory. Well, for this addict it did. But that day in the court, when I was just about to give my big sad story of the little victim that I was, you know, me. Instead I said, I don't know what's best, Judge. I looked over at my ex-husband. I could see the man was riddled with fear of losing his family and his children. And I remember like the peace coming over me, just saying, God, sit with him. I'm okay. Mind that man. Like, it's the first time I'd ever thought of somebody else like in that way. And that they were the words that came out. I don't know what's best. And I didn't know what was best, but God knew what was best. And they said, you know, okay, well, you're not going to get what you wanted, so we're going to leave you where you are for the next 15 years. My youngest child was 3 at the time. Until she turned 18, you can't move out of that town. The town was like 120 miles away from my town where I wanted to be. And I thought I was prison sentenced to Tipperary for 15 years, like. And but you know, as the years go by, you see what God's plan was, and that was having integrity that day in the court. That was doing the right thing and saying the right thing, even though I didn't want to. And I don't even believe that it came from me. I believe that it came deep down from God. Like, because as soon as I had it said, I went, you fucking idiot, Edwina. What did you say that for? Like, but I've always known it was the right thing, and I've continued to know. And I want to tell you this story because it has been going on for me for the past 3 weeks. But I have been practicing this program to the best of my ability, which is pretty fucking a lot, by the way. Like, I don't mess up with inventory. I don't mess up with sponsor work. I've never not had sponsees on the book. I've had my sister die, my brother die, my nephew die, my ma die. I've had a lot of deaths in the last few years. And even on their deaths and I wait in their funerals, my home was always open to helping people and doing what I was told to do on Cocaine Anonymous, going to me meetings and helping other women. And I don't say that because I want to sound like I'm a great girl. I do that because my primary purpose is to stay clean. And in order for me to stay clean, I'm told I have to help others. And my other reason for doing it is because I'm so overjoyed when I tell other women when they come in and men, darling, you don't have to live this way anymore. Wait till I tell you there's another way. Because I didn't know there was another way. I grew up in a chronic addict home where it was fucking turmoil all the time, where I was absolutely riddled with fear as a kid, where I'd piss to bed with fear. To be shown another way, and you're not going to slack on the behaviours around here. I'm not going to slack on the behaviours around here. Like, there's been many a times where my mind will tell me, rob this, don't pay for that, have an affair because he's so much hotter than your man you're marrying. Like all the time I have them thoughts, but I came to believe your mind doesn't always tell you the truth, and you don't have to always listen to it and believe it. Like, you know what I mean? I can laugh at those thoughts now. I don't ever have to follow them through. In actual fact, 2 weeks ago, I was in Dundrum Shopping Centre and I bought a new pair of jeans and a few bits, but your one never took for the jeans. And I was getting to the car and I knew she didn't take for the jeans, right? But I didn't want to check the bag because once I check it and I knew she didn't take it, I'd have to go back into the shop and pay for the jeans. And I was with my daughter, she's nearly 20. And I waited till we got to the car and I said to her, Ella, that sounded a bit cheap. It should have been a bit more than that. And she checked the receipt and she goes, oh my God, they didn't charge you for the jeans. And I goes, oh, we better go back in. She was like, we went in there shite, man. Come on, we're going, like, get into the car. So we went home. Do you think I could get away with that? No. And I didn't have to do inventory on it. I didn't have to ring anybody on it. I fucking knew it was the wrong thing. And again, do I want to sell myself short for €60 pair of jeans? No. Do I want to lose my peace of mind for I want to forget about it, but that's not how the road works the longer you're on this path. The road gets narrower and narrower and narrower. I would have got away with that for the first year or two in recovery, no problem at all. I would have been like, lovely, fucking easy, your one was. Anyway, you know what I mean? But it just gets narrower and narrower because we alcoholics are undisciplined. And I let God discipline me in the simple way he outlines in the book. And in the last couple of weeks, I practice meditation every single day. I hate meditation. Every single day I practice meditation. I might do 5 minutes breathing and like a 10-minute guided meditation. I don't like it. I want to like it. I really want to like it, but I don't. But guess what? I practice it anyway. I switch something on. Sometimes it's over before I realise and I think, oh my God, was that even on? Maybe I have to do it again. It's not that I'm driven by fear to do it. I do it because it's part of the program. And I remember being told in early recovery, if you're not doing step 12 or you're not doing step 10, like spot checking yourself, or you're not doing step 11, if you're not doing one of your steps in your 12 steps, Edwina, well then you've lost touch with your first step. You don't think you're powerless anymore. You don't think your life is unmanageable anymore. You think you have the power and you think you can run your life. So I practice every morning. I put it on. I have the same routine for the last 12 years. I get up really early. I go downstairs. I sit down. I put on I do my prayers. I do my prayers before I even get out of bed. I try to do them before I get out of bed because I'm not distracted by the phone and the kettle and the whatever. And I go downstairs and I switch on a little meditation. I do a reading. I reach out to others. And that's me kind of little morning. I do a good half hour of all of it together, right? Maybe 40 minutes. And the meditation 5 or 10 minutes. And I do it not because, as I said, not because I'm driven by fear, but because I'm driven by the truth that I have to keep seeking. I have to keep seeking God and this program, the way I saw out drugs and drug dealers and men and money and all the things I used to chase before. So I do it for that reason, right? And 3 weeks ago, we had a European Regional Convention. We had the European Regional Convention here in Ireland, and we had a guy over from London who I met last year. A lot of you probably know him. He does a lot of the breathwork stuff. And last year I had a big experience with him out in Scotland at the campvention and doing the breathwork. And I thought, oh my God, like, he told us we had to lie down and he was going to do this breathwork with us. And we were lying down, only lying down 5 minutes. And he goes, now we're going to be here for an hour, so get comfortable. And I thought, shit, I have to lie here and meditate for an hour. I'm not going to be able to do it. Like, my mind's so manic. And of course, I done it and I had an amazing experience while doing it. So, you know, typical addict, I said to him, oh, I'm chair for the European Convention next year. Can we book you to come to Ireland and do your breathwork workshop with us? So he did, and he came and done it on the Saturday and Sunday. I had the most profound 2 days doing the breathwork on the Saturday and Sunday. I've done it for an hour on the Saturday morning and an hour on the Sunday morning. Now, I won't even try and get into explaining what happened to you on this, because it could be a bit fucking freaky for anybody that's new on. But I am telling you, I could not believe what happened to me on that Saturday and Sunday, that I had to actually go into a lockdown in my body for 10 days afterwards. I had to last 10 days off work. I only went back to work today. It was the most powerful experience I've ever had, and it was a very healing one. With my mum, who had only passed away last year, and God and other little things that was in it. It was amazing. So the same guy done one then last week with me online. He done another one online. And I'm thinking, of course, I'm addicted to it now. I've booked like a meditation retreat on Sunday in Kilkenny to go for 4 hours to do this breathwork thing. You know what I mean? Typical addict. But I done another one with him online last week. And I was thinking, this can't work online. You know what I mean? It's not going to be the same. I'm not going to get the same effects produced, you know? And I did. Like, I was lying here in bed, halfway into it, I started having an experience again. Like, and it was an experience of when I was 15. When I was 15 years of age, I used to sell ecstasy. And I was out one night after taking a load of ecstasy, and I came home to be told that my dad was dead. He had committed suicide. And on that night, I left the house and went to, we have a little 24-hour shop. Well, we used to anyway. Stephen would know it Fridays. It's not there anymore. I went down to that little shop to get cigarettes. But when I went down, I had an argument with a plastic bag. I thought the plastic bag was two fellas and they wouldn't let me pass. Now, I don't know if it was after the shock of me dad after committing suicide, or if I had just taken too many ecstasy, because I was after taking about 9 or 10 of them. So it was probably DE, right? But when I done the meditation during the week with Eddie, it brought me back to that episode. And I was like in my adult body with God saying, Edwina, darling, you're safe. You're safe now, and you were safe then. It was like God was saying he was always with me. And I went into the shop in the meditation, bought the cigarettes and came outside. And what I seen was like this little 15-year-old girl standing there, and an actual visualization of an icicle going up around my heart. Because in meditations, when you're having visuals, there's no words, but a lot of stuff is expressed. And there was an icicle formed around my heart, and this like kind of a defense thing. And I realized in that moment, because I have been fighting my whole fucking life. I'll fight you. If you make fun of me, I'll fight at you for whatever reason. I'll fight to get my way. I'll fight to get drugs. I'll fight to fucking make myself feel better. I've just been fighting. And in that meditation, God showed me the icicle. And as I'm breathing, doing the breath work here, as I'm breathing out, I'm breathing like warm air on the icicle. And the icicle's like dripping. And I just was, what it felt like to me was like God saying, come on, it's time to thaw out now, darling. Like what our 10-step promise is, we cease fighting everything and everyone. It might have taken 12 years for me to start realising I can drop the defences, you know what I mean? But it's taken the disciplines of the programme. It's taken me 12 years of sitting on my couch every morning for 5 or 10 minutes, wrecking my head with my mind, to be brought into a place of, at the European Regional Convention, getting absolute letting go of grief and forgiveness with my mother, was so beautiful. It's just such a lovely gift from God, like, them getting it now around me dad. And it's like, it just keeps getting better. I've been doing them all week. I've been putting them on in the mornings. And I'm like, that one's only 25 minutes. It's too short. Like, this is from a woman who couldn't even sit for 5 fucking minutes. You know what I mean? So I suppose the message I'm trying to even portray tonight is like, the program is there and it's not to be done perfectly. It's taken me time after time to grow into the woman that God always wanted me to be. And the woman that I always wanted to be. I wanted to be a good woman who done what she said she would do and who turned up for things when she said she turned up for things. And I'll tell you what really disciplined me into that. Anybody that's on this meeting here, Carly, or anyone that really knows me from my home group, or anyone that I sponsor, Corolla, there's other people on here that I sponsor, or people that I've shared at first, things that, if I tell you that I will do something in CA, I will fucking do it. And I will do it because, one, it's the right thing to do, but two, because CA has saved my life. And I adore this fellowship, and I would do anything to be of service to this fellowship. I've always had a service position in our fellowship, you know what I mean? So I do it for those reasons. And that's what really having integrity is. It's like doing the right thing no matter what. You know what I mean? I remember even when the day before my sister's funeral, I was booked in to do a share at the meeting, and I turned up and they were like, we weren't kind of expecting you here. We got somebody else. And I was like, well, I'm here because it's the right thing to do. Like, you know what I mean? And this is all I know. That's all I know. I know a life filled of criminal, drugs, lying, cheating, stealing. That's how I was reared. And then I know a life through CA, which is disciplined, doing the right thing when no one's watching, trying my little best, staying clean and sober, getting through divorces and deaths and all of those things that happen no matter what, because I have a God that I know absolutely loves me. And that when my back is against the wall, being in a relationship, having me 2 girls, having all them people, as much as them things are all lovely, all any of us really have is connection with God. That's all we have. But that's all I have. Like, them other things are great and they're a brilliant part of my life and they add to my life and I hope I add to their lives. But at the end of the day, when my back's against the wall, all as I have is my true relationship with God. And that's the one I want to invest in most, you know what I mean? And that's the one that I have been leaning into for the last 12 years, no matter what's gone on, the ups, the downs. You know, God is so humble, like, in everything that God does. God gives us all of this. He does all the work. He lets us take all the credit. My family think I'm great. They think, oh my God, Edwina, it's amazing. You know, they don't know that it's all glory goes to God. They don't know that. They just see that I turn up for stuff. I do stuff when I say I'll do it. I'm a woman of integrity. You know what I mean? They don't know that I have been disciplined into being that person. But I know, and I know who all thanks goes to. You know what I mean? And you know, that's kind of running out of steam on that one, but that's where I'm at. That's, you know, the journey. That's the way God has molded me. That's what doing the program has been for me. And I hope I made some sense to some people, and I'll leave it at that. Thanks, everyone.